Happy Friday, everybody. I am super excited because today and tomorrow is finally going to be in the mid to upper 60s where I'm at here in Michigan. So, yeah, really looking forward to that after a very cold winter. So, um, wanted to talk to everybody today about the truth about freight brokering, okay? And there's some harsh realities that people need to understand. If you recently got into the industry and maybe fell into one of these posts and things, or maybe you're looking to get into freight brokering, maybe you are a carrier that doesn't really understand what it is that a broker does. Maybe you had some misconceptions what you thought a broker does, right? But we're going to kind of go over that a little bit. Before we do, we did have a question on one of our recent posts, and this comes from Al19886. How do you handle a canceled load? Okay, I'm going to assume at this point, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, that this is coming from a broker standpoint, right? Like, so if a customer cancels a load on you, because they didn't give any context, like if you're a carrier and load cancels, obviously then you get back on the load board, call your direct customers, your brokers that you work with, and see if they've got something else, right? Fairly simple. If there's two ways. If a carrier cancels on you, obviously you need to let your customer know right away, right? You need to be transparent about that, be upfront, be honest with them. They're going to appreciate that. Don't let them search out other options if need be, and work on trying to recover that truck, right? Or recover that load with another carrier. That's really about all you can do. Start making phone calls, and this is why having a network is so very important. Brokers networking with each other. Maybe you've got a carrier that you work with on the regularly. Hey, do you know anybody that maybe runs this lane? I just had a truck fall off. I've done that before. And they said, oh, yeah, Bob, or whoever I know, they normally run that lane. I'll give you his number. You can call him and see if he's available. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Now, if a customer cancels a load on you, there's not really a whole lot you can do there, right? And there's different instances why a load can get canceled. In fact, I just had the very same conversation with a carrier that picked up for me on Wednesday. Well, I'll get into that in a moment. But, let your carrier know right away that the load got canceled. See if they've got something else. Find out, is this load maybe picking up later in the day? Maybe this was a morning pickup and they're canceling it now, but maybe the load can pick up later in the day. Is it picking up the following day, 2 days, 3 days out? Are they pushing it out to the following week? Right? A lot of different things can happen. Sometimes, that customer is waiting on another load to come into their facility, right? That's getting offloaded, and then some of that product needs to get loaded onto the truck that that you booked. And for whatever reason, that other truck A, is late, or something happened, whatever. I've run into that before. Sometimes you have a customer that they've got a huge catastrophe that happens, right? And this driver actually watched this happen. And I've heard about it. I've been told about it. I've had it happen to me, but I've never physically seen it other than on video. And some of you maybe have seen it, where a forklift driver bumps one of the racking and everything goes down like a domino, like dominoes, and the entire inventory in that warehouse just boom, it's just chaos, right? It goes down, and the gentleman told me that the driver told me that it makes a very thunderous boom, and everybody was like, what is that? And so it's happened, things like that. And so, like in regards to the load that we had Wednesday, driver showed up, couldn't find anybody. We're like, okay, what's going on? Well, I've got him on the phone. I call over to the shipper, because this was a facility that we normally don't ship out of. And I called over there to them, and he said, no, he says, I needed that truck yesterday. He says, but we're not ready to load today even. He says, I need to schedule this for pickup tomorrow. Well, we had booked that truck just the night before, right? And he had already been sitting for, I think, a day and a half, waiting on a load to get out of there to go home. And so I got a little upset, right? And normally I don't get upset, so I said, wait a minute. I said, you guys had plenty of time to let me know that, you weren't ready to load the truck today. You're waiting until the driver shows up to cancel on us, and apparently there was some miscommunication between the project manager over there and the main office that sent the load to me, right? And so there was, I think we went on for, I don't know, it was like an hour and a little over an hour and 40 minutes or something like that, trying to sort that out. And then it was, oh, well, the receiver's going to be closed on Friday, so, he won't be able to deliver until Monday. And I'm like, what are you people doing over there? So there's a lot of headaches involved, and various reasons why a load cancels, but always find out, when is this load going to actually pick up then, right? There's not really a lot you can do. So I hope I answered your question. If you need me to go a little bit more in depth or anything like that, by all means, feel free to email me, freightmasterresources@gmail.com. And, I can go over that a little bit better with you. But based on your question, I hope that I answered that for you. On a piece of sad news, Equity Transportation is shutting down. Equity Transportation Company Incorporated, a 51-year-old trucking company based in Walker, Michigan, has ceased operations, laying off all drivers. Reports indicate some employees are awaiting final wages, with bounced checks adding to concerns. The company, flagged for financial distress, faced operational challenges, including regulatory violations and accidents. Broader industry pressures like overcapacity, declining rates, and economic uncertainty have contributed to a wave of trucking bankruptcies, right? This is something that I've said all along for the last several months, I believe, that we're going to continue to see capacity fall off, as well as brokerages, right? There's a lot of brokerages out there that aren't surviving either. But this is, like I said, Equity shutdown is another tragic story within the ongoing freight recession, where even long-established carriers struggle to survive in this volatile market. The company, as of today, has not issued a statement. So we'll try to keep an eye on that. Again, I don't think there's really much more that's going to come out of that. Hopefully that, everybody gets paid, all the employees over there get paid, and that. But it's always sad to see, especially a long-term, or a company that's been around for so long, kind of fade away. So, moving on to the main part of this video, I actually came across this post on LinkedIn, and it was pretty interesting. And it sort of, when I read it, it really kind of hit me, because I've talked to a lot of people over the years who kind of have this misconception that they can be a freight broker part-time. Okay. And that's a very, very dangerous myth. And basically it's time that myth kind of gets shut down, right? Because freight brokering is not passive income. Some of you may have seen some of the social media gurus trying to convince people that brokering freight is an easy work from home side hustle, where you collect, huge commission checks while doing next to nothing, right? And I think that for some carriers that, maybe see some of these posts, they think, well, broker's not, they don't do anything. They just sit in front of a computer and, book loads and, and our days are very lackadaisy and just, there's no stress involved or anything. And that's just complete nonsense. Okay. The reality of freight brokering is that it's a grind. All right. It's not a quick get rich quick scheme. I need more coffee this morning, y'all. Bear with me. Building relationships as a freight broker takes time, right? You're not going to just, run out there, make a couple of calls and expect to be successful, right? In fact, I just saw a post the other day from someone, and I forget what their background was, but they thought that where freight brokers got loads was on the load board. So like on Truck Stop, DAT, and places like that. It's, I don't know where that myth is coming from, but no, you have to pick up the phone and start dialing, right? This industry is really kind of built on trust. Okay. Shippers don't just hand their freight to someone with no experience. All right. And most carriers won't haul loads for a broker they don't know. Right. So when you do a load search on DAT and you see some of those, they don't have a credit score, they don't have a days to pay or anything like that, it can be very difficult early on for a new freight brokerage to build trust, right? And start building relationships with carriers and shippers, because you're the new kid on the block. Nobody knows you, right? And so, that's why I get a lot of emails, messages and things, what do I have to do? And I've said this before, sometimes they're, 4 months, 6 months in, they quit their job, they're doing this, and maybe they've got 1 or 2 customers, maybe they don't have any customers at all. And they're like, look, I got enough cash to go another month, but then that's it. I can't keep going. I've got, reoccurring load board costs. I've got, my vetting software. I've got my load board, which, my TMS, which depending upon the TMS, that can run into the thousands of dollars, or it can be, a couple of $100, a month. And some of these new brokerages that go through these training programs and things, you need all the bells and whistles, just like the big guys in the industry. And that's just not the case. Right. So they've got huge recurring expenses for someone just starting out and, nothing coming back in. Market knowledge is everything, right? As we all know, rates change daily. Understanding the market, negotiating with carriers, and providing real quotes, not just guessing a rate based on, what it says on the load board, is crucial, right? You can't just look at market rate if it's a 2-pick 3-drop load, right? And expect to move it at that rate, for instance, right? Just as a quick example. So, and that's one of the things, and I've said this before, even when I went through my training program, I was lost when I got done. I thought I knew it all, and I found out very, very quickly that I did not, right? And it was, thanks to the mercy of a few really nice carriers out there through social media that I was able to connect with, and a couple of brokers that really kind of helped me find my path. Okay. And so, like a lot of you, some of you that I talk to, I try to help out as much as I can. But even for me at this point, with my customers, I'm putting in 16, 18, 20-hour days, 7 days a week, right? It truly is a grind. You're not just, holding banker hours, and maybe for some they do, right? Because if you're at a very large brokerage, they've got after hours, people that come in, but they don't, a lot of those, they really kind of don't do anything, right? They don't have the cell phone number to their customer or things like that, where, hey, there's a problem, we need to reach the customer or something. If a carrier calls in and lets them know that there's an issue, it's very little solace to the carrier or to the customer to have after hours, right? If you don't have the person actually on the load that booked the load and everything. Next thing is that problems will happen, and they will happen constantly, right? Freight gets delayed, trucks break down, shipments get reclassified, customers constantly demanding updates. In fact, we just been working recently for the last couple of months with a new customer, and 3:00 in the morning, I'm getting phone calls. Hey, where's that truck? Even though we're providing tracking updates and things, so then I have to, provide them with those updates. If you think you can book a load and just forget about it, you're in for a rude awakening, right? I guess is what I'm trying to say. Next thing is regulations and compliance. They do matter. You can't just wing it in logistics, right? FMCSA rules, carrier vetting, double brokering scams. There's a lot out there that you need to stay on top of, right? And that's why we're seeing this rise in cargo theft, double brokering, identity theft, right? It's happening to carriers and brokers. And I think that in some instances, it's complacency, right? For some of these smaller brokers, especially, they're not training their agents, right, or their employees to not click on certain emails or click links in certain emails. Okay. We did a video on cybersecurity, right, and things to watch out for. If you haven't seen that, I advise you to watch it, because it could literally make or break your business. And so, watch that, and that will hopefully help you out and sidestep that landmine, right? Because that's a whammy. The average workload, right? It is not for the lazy. Successful freight broker is on the phone constantly, right? Booking freight isn't just clicking a button, right? It's a combination of cold calling, negotiations, tracking, problem solving, and firefighting, right? Basically, kind of try to think of it like this. All right. You want to make six figures, prepare to put in 60 plus hours a week, right? Building relationships and solving problems. You want to be lazy, go work at Walmart, right? Go work at McDonald's, right? Because you're not going to last a month. All right. The passive income lie feeds another dangerous myth. Okay. The idea that freight brokering is passive income also fuels another damaging lie, that brokers do nothing while collecting a paycheck and stiffing carriers with awful rates, right? It's supply and demand, people, right? Just like I mentioned with that carrier in Michigan that just recently, folded after 51 years. When it's widespread across the board, it's not freight brokers, getting together on Thursdays in robes around a fire and having a big meeting and, figuring out how we can screw carriers, right? And I understand with the whole, transparency thing, and everybody's after TQL because they made 44% or whatever it was on a single load, but nobody cares when the market rate is up, right? And carriers are making money hand over fist. It's only when the market goes down do we start to hear about, brokers are trying to stiff carriers and they want to pay awful rates. Well, why do you think that is, right? It's supply and demand. When we end up with an overcapacity or freight volumes fall off, market rate drops, that's what happens. Right. And nobody thinks about the times when brokers are making 3 to 5% on a load, right? Or when they lose money on a load. We talked recently about how the average profit margin for brokers in 2024 was, I think it was what, 14.3%, 14 point some percent, I believe it was. So it all kind of balances out. Yeah, if they made 44% on that load, they probably lost money on another load, right? And you're looking at 44%. It may not have ended up into, and I don't know, I don't remember all the details. 44% might have been $200 on that load, right? I don't know if it was a long run, a short run, what it was. Obviously it's probably not into the thousands and thousands of dollars, right? Maybe it is, maybe it's not. I don't know. But this also comes down to negotiations. Okay. If you're calling about a load and you open that call to that broker and say, hey, I'm calling about this load in Dallas going to Chicago. What are you paying on that? Without knowing any details on the load, right? And they say, well, we're paying this much. And you just go, okay, thanks, bloop, and hang up. You didn't negotiate anything, right? You didn't say, well, I might be interested. Tell me the load details on that. And then, you go through what the load involves. And then, okay, you're offering 1,200. I really need to be at 15, right? Can we get to 15? Maybe they can. Maybe they need to, maybe they're getting 1,350 or 1,400 on the load, right? And they need to call their customer and be like, hey, we really need to be at like 17 on this, so the broker makes a little money and get you your 15. Sometimes that can happen, right? Customer might laugh in their face and go, I'll come up a little bit, I'll go to 15 or 16, right? And get you as close to 15 where you wanted to be as possible. But you don't know that by just saying, okay, thanks, and hanging up the phone, right? You need to learn to negotiate, okay? So anyway, that whole idea that brokers do nothing and just stiff carriers and collect, a big paycheck is the furthest thing from the truth. All right. Ethical brokers work constantly to balance shipper budgets with fair carrier rates, right? I've got guys that run reefer freight for me right now at like $4.61 a mile, right? Why is that? Because we've established that relationship with my carriers and my customers. My customers like having those same carriers picking up their loads, right? And they pay a premium for that reliability, for that relationship, right? And this has been long term. We've been doing this for a long time. Can you always do that? No. But by establishing those relationships, you're more likely to do better in the industry, right? So the best brokers fight for higher rates, push back on shippers trying to lowball the market, right? We've talked about some of those shippers that are just horrible, and ensure carriers get paid fairly for the work that they do, right? Are there bad brokers who cut corners? Absolutely. Okay. Just like there are bad actors in every industry, but the idea that all brokers are sitting around getting rich off of underpaying carriers is just another falsehood that damages the broker-carrier relationship, right? We've talked about this. Good brokers know that strong carrier relationships are their key to long-term success, right? And by building those relationships with, having strong carrier relationships helps carriers out as well, right? Everybody benefits from having those strong relationships, okay? The passive income lie hurts the industry. This false narrative creates a flood of unprepared brokers who underquote freight, fail to cover loads, and burn relationships with shippers and carriers, okay? And guess what? That damages the industry for all of us. Okay? If you want to be a freight broker, great. It can be profitable, it can be rewarding, right? But you have to be ready to put in the time, learn the industry, and hustle every single day. There is no shortcut to this, right? So the next time someone tries to sell you on a passive income freight brokerage course, do yourself a favor, run the other direction, okay? You've got to, and I love this quote from or this line from The Wolf of Wall Street. For those of you that have maybe seen that movie, and if you haven't, watch it. But he says, do you have bills that are overdue? Good. Pick up the phone and start dialing. Right? Is your girlfriend getting ready to leave you because you're a broke ass? Good. Pick up the phone and start dialing. You get the idea, right? He goes on like that. If you're an agent or you're starting a brokerage, you live and die on that phone. Okay? Now, there's going to be some that tell you that, you can make 10 calls a day and still be successful, right? By targeting the right customers and things. To some extent, that's true, right? But odds are you're going to make a ton of phone calls, especially if you lack good sales experience, right? If you haven't had any previous sales experience, you're going to have to learn it very, very quickly, right, to survive. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. I look forward to your comments on this. Agree with me, disagree with me, but this is something that I found to be a matter of fact for the most part in this industry, right? There's some that might get lucky, maybe over the course of a month, make 100 phone calls. They picked up some really great customers, but odds are those people were probably freight agents prior to starting their own brokerage. Okay. They already had some relationships and they kind of were able to hit the ground running. So that being said, again, I look forward to everybody's comments. If you're struggling, pick up that phone. Join some groups, on LinkedIn, Facebook, etc. Learn as much as you possibly can, because 99% of these freight courses that at least that I've seen are so incomplete. It's general information. There's a lot to keep track of, right? You're going to get customers like I do. Hey, what's the market looking like 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, next month? Things like this. And we do our best looking at the data of, is the market going down? Is it coming up? On this particular lane, this is what we can expect to pay, right? That kind of thing. So yeah, you need to learn a lot. You cannot just wing it, because you're going to get into especially certain types of freight by doing that, possibly where you're going to screw up big time because you don't fully understand it. Like if you've never done drayage before, don't jump into it trying to think that you can just wing it and get through it, right? Well, the carrier knows what they're doing, and I'll just no, because there's going to be problems. There's going to be issues, right? If you've never hauled produce before, right? Does that mean that you can't get into other things, or, heavy haul, over dimensional, overweight type freight? You can, but find a mentor, right? Learn as much about it, the ins and outs about everything to deal with that niche as you possibly can before you jump into it. Okay. I guess is my point to that. Don't just rely on a couple of questions or, I'll just do this, or the customer knows, the carrier knows, and I'll just make that connection and and I'll make a little money. No, it doesn't work that way. Because when there is a problem, that carrier calls you, that driver calls you, right, and needs you to fix something, you're going to be left there going, right? You can't call the customer back because they'll be like, you idiot, what are you doing? Right? You'll destroy that relationship. You're going to lose that customer. You're going to lose that carrier relationship. You can't fake it till you make it in this industry. You just can't. All right. It's enough of my preaching. But again, I hope you guys found this helpful. I look forward to your comments. I've been trying to reply to everybody's comments as quickly as possible here lately. It is Friday. I hope everybody had a great week. I hope everybody's looking forward to having a great next week, and so on and so forth. As always, be kind to one another. Till next time, bye-bye.